Humanity is at war with witches, with battles raging all across the land and more theaters reporting heavy losses and defeats. The church is becoming desperate. Luckily, scout reports inform that a long-lost vessel has been found, carrying an artifact with the power of turning the tide of this conflict. It's at this moment that the Pope sends out the witch hunters to infiltrate one of the witches' territories in search of this artifact. You are one of these witch hunters, also known as a prayer. No, not a player or a prayer, but a prayer. Get it? Because you prey upon your enemies. Hey, don't look at me like that. I didn't come up with the naming conventions, okay? Regardless, this is Witchfire, an RPG first-person shooter with roguelike elements developed by the astronauts. Your purpose as a prayer is to eliminate any and all witch servants that stand between you and the newly discovered vessel. However, one good look at your character and you'll realize you don't really look the part of a holy servant of the church, if you get my meaning. The demonic-looking mask and blood-red glow emanating from within doesn't really give off that holy feel, and for good reason, because apparently you have a little something called Witchfire in your blood that allows you to use supernatural powers that are very similar to that of the witches. Oh, the plot thickens. To start off your journey, you first must select your character. You have 6 possible options that remind me of the Dark Souls class selection screen, each with their own stat distributions and starting equipment. You have the Butcher, the Hunter, the Slayer, the Shadow, the Saint, and the Penitent. Once you've selected your preferred class, you find yourself in an abandoned outpost called the Hermitorium that will become your main player hub from which you will embark on expeditions within the witch's territory. Here you'll have access to a small tutorial section that will teach you the basic controls, as well as a fair number of workbenches and altars that provide you with various services. Some are locked at the start though, so you'll have to check what the requirements are and unlock them at your leisure. To give you a quick overview of what you'll have at your disposal, there's the apothecary where you craft your healing potions, the gun room where you'll select the loadout you'll have when out on a run, the workshop mirror which serves as your main research space, allowing you to unlock new weapons and gear, and the ascension shrine, which will be where you go to spend your currency to level up. There are more amenities available, but I'll explain those a little later on. Right, once you're ready, you can go ahead and make your way towards the red portal at the bottom of the stairs and select your destination. From what I've experienced, there are a total of 6 areas from which you can select, of which only 3 are playable in early access. Your first option is the Island of the Damned, which, contrary to its name, is a very low difficulty level designed to ease you into your role as the prayer and get a feel for what you and your enemies can do. The purpose of every map is for you to find and clear out all of these encampments or events and, in doing so, reap the rewards in the form of Witchfire currency and Arcana, which will enhance your abilities in various ways. Once you've cleared up all points of interest, you're free to either challenge the main boss of the map or retreat back to the Hermitorium to capitalize on your well-earned loot. Of course, as I'm sure everyone who's ever played a Souls-like before knows, death will be your constant companion during your playthrough, and will make sure you lose all of your Witchfire should you choose to cross beyond the veil. You'll be able to recover your belongings if you can recover your corpse in your next run. Once back at your base, you can use your Witchfire to level yourself up or spend it on this ominous-looking gate you have here. Should you decide to unlock the gate, you'll gain access to the Gnosis Tome. Fulfilling the tasks requested of you by the tome will increase your Gnosis level. This does a couple of things. The main thing it does is make the game harder. You'll encounter new and tougher enemies, but it also allows you to access new content during your expeditions. You'll find red runes on the wall or ghostly chests that can't be interacted with unless you have the required Gnosis level to unlock. Raising the Gnosis level will also allow you to unlock the Prophecy Study, among other things, where you can slot prophecies you found throughout your expeditions to guarantee certain types of Arcana appearing in that slot. There is also the Vestal Flame, which, funnily enough, I've only interacted with after I cleared the available content. Once unlocked, you can use the Vestal Flame and spend 1,000 Witchfire to get an Echoes quest. This quest is only available for the next run and will tell you what objectives you have to fulfill to be able to get Echoes as a reward. With these Echoes, you'll be able to unlock one of the runes next to the Vestal Flame, each rune requiring 50 Echoes. However, there is a second requirement to this that the game never told me about until it was too late, and that is finding the 3 pieces of a Mask of a Fallen Prayer, and wouldn't you know it, I had spent my Echoes on the exact rune I didn't have the 3 mask pieces for. Yes, I'm still salty about that. I'm not really sure why the requirements had to be separated into 2 stages rather than just having one single target that says get me 50 echoes and 3 mask pieces. My saltiness aside, if you do get all the mask pieces, you will be able to summon the spirit of a fallen prayer. These spirits offer passive abilities for your run, like increasing your melee damage or delaying calamities, which is nice, but they can also be summoned on field in exchange for a certain amount of Witchfire. Summoning will have different effects like drawing the attention of all enemies or completely shutting down a calamity before it's even begun. Speaking of calamities, these can be both a blessing and a curse depending on how you see them. Calamities take place once the witch is completely aware of your presence in her domain. Make too many mistakes or trigger too many traps, and the meter in the top left corner will fill up, triggering a countdown to a calamity. During the countdown, you can look up to the sky and find the red tornado. Make your way towards it and you'll find a pillar of dark energy surrounded by about 5 skulls that you can eliminate and nip the calamity in the bud. But if you don't get to it in time, the calamity will activate and will summon forth an overwhelming amount of enemies and send you in a state of panic that will eat your sanity meter little by little until you complete the objective required to clear it. Usually these objectives are just kill X number of this specific enemy, so it shouldn't pose too much of a trouble unless this happens when you're already fighting an encampment full of enemies. Either way you decide to clear a calamity, you will get many rewards at the end, which is why I say it's both a blessing and a curse. I like to use calamities as a way to recover most of my ammo and health potions, as well as get some extra feathers and loot to sell. This is a currency that you can use to unlock more than just 1 arcana per row, so it's theoretically possible to farm enough feathers to the point that you can max out your arcana tree. These feathers can only be used while on an expedition, however, as they will not go back to the hermitorium with you, so use them without any fear. Now, with all of this out of the way, let's get into combat. You've got a gun, you point, and you shoot until there's nothing left standing in front of you. You've got a melee attack that you can use whenever you want, but also an empowered version of it that's available on a cooldown, and also light and heavy spells that are also on a cooldown and provide various effects. The main mechanic you want to pay attention to during combat is focus. Once you kill enough enemies, your stamina bar will turn yellow, and while in this state, dashing while targeting an enemy will cause some red orbs to appear. Shooting these orbs will stun the enemy, amplifying the damage they receive. Get hit, however, and you're knocked out of this focus state, forcing you to kill enough enemies to get back into it. This will be your bread and butter, so you have to make sure not to get hit lest you lose your main way of stunning your enemies. You'll also have to manage your stamina bar accordingly, as sprinting, dashing, jumping, double jumping, and even aiming down sights and shooting will consume some of it. Thankfully, you can increase your stamina bar and its regeneration speed by investing in the endurance stat at the Ascension Shrine to facilitate better movement for longer periods of time. On the subject of stats, there are 6. Vitality for your max HP, Healing to increase potion effectiveness, Endurance for your max stamina, Witchery for spell efficiency, Metanoia for gaining more Witchfire, and Luck, which helps with staying hidden from the witch's notice. From my experience, the most important stat to invest in is the Witchery stat. You see, spells don't really recharge on a timer, they recharge on kills. The higher your Witchery stat, the more efficient each kill is in recharging your spell. Get enough Witchery and it might just be possible to kill enemies with spells efficiently enough to have them recharge almost instantly. Not to mention, considering how easily you'll run out of ammo in an expedition, complementing your gunplay with spells will do wonders for your ammo conservation. There's even this elemental reaction system that will trigger different damaging effects if you hit an enemy with 2 different elements. I won't go into detail on these, so go ahead and experiment for yourselves. To give a few examples of what spells you'll be able to wield, you've got a fire breath that you can spray in front of you, a ball of lightning that electrocutes enemies, and a giant bell you can summon that stuns enemies in the area. It's safe to say that you won't be lacking in variety. To further enhance your gameplay, you can equip a relic, a ring, and a fetish. Mixing and matching these will be where your build crafting will come into play, as these can synergize quite well with the weapons and spells you've chosen, allowing you to more efficiently dispatch the witch's faithful. As if that weren't enough, every part of your loadout can be upgraded at the Mysteria Forge. To do so, you need the necessary resources and must complete specific objectives. Typically, these objectives involve killing a certain number of enemies while having that piece of gear equipped. However, these requirements might pose an issue as they can dissuade players from trying out new weapons and items after they've already upgraded other pieces of equipment to a more powerful state. Each piece of gear can be upgraded up to 3 stages, with each stage unlocking new effects to further enhance your prayer. I think that the astronauts have a very strong foundation here, one upon which they can build a very fun experience for roguelike enjoyers everywhere. Considering the roadmap they have on the game's Steam page, we can expect a slew of new content coming to the game in the foreseeable future, like new bosses, new enemies, more weapons, spells, and magical items, as well as an entirely new region lauded as their biggest yet. There will also be system overhauls for the current stat, prophecy, and research systems, and even the introduction of quests. Maybe these quests will help in fleshing out the story, as there haven't been any other story elements in the game aside from the introductory cutscene. Personally, what I'd like to see added to the game is a bit of a quality of life change regarding the stamina system. Given that the maps are fairly large, you will end up in scenarios where you'll be running around from one end of the map to the other multiple times. As such, I think it would be great if we could have stamina not drain while out of combat so that we can reduce the downtime of having to travel from one objective to the next. I'd also like to see a mid-air dash being added as part of our basic movement capabilities. Not being able to air dash is disappointing, but there's a ring that will allow you to do that, so I guess it's fine if you're okay with wasting a ring slot for it. Losing focus doesn't really feel good when it happens, which makes sense as it's supposed to be a punishment, but as it is right now, one mistake is enough to pull you out of it, and that doesn't feel too fun. I'm not really sure what they can do to make it feel better. Maybe we can have a regenerating shield that can take 2 hits instead before we lose the focus. Just a thought. Aside from that, some general bug fixes would be great. I'm not sure if this counts as a bug, but I've had situations where the weak points can spawn behind an enemy, making them very hard if not impossible to hit, and there have also been situations where even though I had enough stamina, I would not be able to aim down sights or fire my weapon or even dodge. I'm not really sure what triggers this, but it's popped up quite often enough for me to take notice. To conclude, Witchfire is a great title that you should definitely keep an eye on. It has its fair share of issues, but that is to be expected with an early access title. Even so, it sits at a very positive rating on Steam with over 2,500 reviews. I definitely enjoyed my time with the game, and even as I type this out, I still feel the itch to go in for another run because the gameplay is just that enticing. My personal recommendation is to keep an eye on it until it fully launches sometime in late 2025. However, if you can't stomach the wait and want to sink your teeth into Witchfire as well as supporting the dev team, by all means go ahead and take the plunge. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, a sub, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, have a good one.